Okay. Tell me when to go. Hi guys, it's Keisha with LAER Partners, and I am the Director of Marketing and Events, and today we're going to go over open house strategy number 2. So I know Stacey went over a couple of things, well, the whole presentation on what you should be doing on your open houses, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper and show you exactly how I run my open houses and all of the extra work that we do in order to do a successful open house. So I'm going to show you everything that I actually bring and all of the materials that I have in order to showcase my talents to the potential sellers and all of the buyers that are around and coming to our listing and the open house. So first things first, I'm going to go over a little bit of what Stacey had gone through. Realize why you're doing the open house. I technically only do open houses on the first week that the house is on the market. It says great to get new buyers, sellers, unlikely that you'll sell a house, which is 100% true. And most buyers are just checking out the neighborhood and just being interested in what's going on in the neighborhood. So I don't do it in that aspect, trying to get more leads. I try to do a bunch of upfront work to expose my listing before the open house, so that way we get a great turnout. That way I'm not just sitting there with no clients coming in. Price is a large factor on this as well. If the house is overpriced, your open house is going to be a waste of time anyways. So I always make sure that if I am doing an open house and I don't get the amount of clientele or customers coming in, there is an issue with the price. It's not usually my marketing, because I'm doing a whole bunch of work, but prior to the open house, I'm marketing. I have professional photos, LAER 3D, drone. There's a bunch of things that I'm doing that I'm showing the sellers that I'm doing. So if we're off at the open house, is another conversation that we will have about the price. So it's just an easier way to get over the price issue if someone is overpriced on their listing, which it does happen often. So why do them? Usually to please the homeowner and to expose yourself and your expertise and talents. So several reasons. Again, just reiterating what Stacey had already did. And you always want to make sure that you're doing the right open house. So if it's not in anywhere a place that is visual or easy to get to, it's usually not worth it. I did have a house on a lake that was, you know, those windy little roads to get to the lake. And it did attract people just because it was on the lake, but I feel like if it was on a easier way to get there, we would have had less work to do with all of our directionals that we had to send out there. So just be aware of your surroundings and how easy it would be to get there and the traffic that it will hold. And then I want to jump into my checklist that I have when I do an open house. So here's the checklist that I go through. I explain the process to my clients, saying, you know, I'm going to start, as soon as we sign our listing contract, we are going to start working on exposing your house to an entire 400 client agents that I have in my company alone. So I let my company know that it's coming. I will leave the listing appointment, go outside, take a picture of the property, and send it to my group of lions in my company and say, this house is hitting the market in so-and-so days. What do you guys think it's worth? And I kind of get the buzz going on. I try to talk it up a lot and, you know, get a conversation going and expose it as much as I can. I then get the LAER 3D service in. I make sure that we get the photos done as soon as possible, and I start marketing the property. I try to showcase it in any which way that I can. I share it on social media. The first week I posted on MLS on this. So you'll see post on MLS, Facebook paid ads, business page, sellers. I share it with the seller as well. So I make sure I tag the seller. So you must be friends. So as part of my listing presentation, I always say, can you, I'm going to friend request you. Can you please not ignore me? And I want to make sure that I get this house exposed to as many people as I can, and who not better to showcase it than the sellers themselves. And they also witness all of the work that I'm doing for them and showcasing their house as well on social media. So I make sure I do that as well. I post it on Twitter. I post it on, sometimes I do Periscope, YouTube. I usually do the video tour that I get from my LAER 3D guy. I do Snapchat videos. I'm obsessed with Snapchat personally, so I do a lot of personal Snapchat tours when I'm at the property. I do Snapchats of the outside, the neighborhood, whatever it is, just to get it going. On Instagram, I use the professional photos that I've gotten from LAER 3D and share those as well. Sometimes I do Craigslist and I'll do a post blog, and then that's just the first week that we do that on. And then day 2, I hand out flyers in the neighborhoods to invite the neighbors personally. I door knock. And I tell the neighbors, sometimes it depends on the area and the market. Again, you only do open houses that work for you and your client and make sense. So if it's in a great neighborhood and I potentially want more listings in that neighborhood, I will personally invite the sellers for the first hour prior to the open house. So that way it's a private showing just for the sellers around the neighborhood, and that kind of gives them a sense of specialty treatment, and it showcases how much you care and how much attention you pay to detail. So then on day 3 that's been on the market, I do a sneak peek video of the home. So I'll do just the best feature of the home, or the backyard, the kitchen. If it has an in-ground pool, you know, the best parts, just to get more traction on the property as well. And then I share the YouTube link again. Day 4, I'll do a countdown of the open house. So I say, you know, 5 days until open house for this beautiful house, blah, blah, blah. And I'll, you know, showcase that as well and promote that. Day 5, I'll do a reminder invite to the neighbors. So I'll either send them an email, if I have their phone number, give them a call, or I'll go by in the neighborhood again and door knock as well to remind them that it's coming up. And then I'll do another countdown, you know, 3 days towards the open house. Just a reminder, it's coming. Make it a big event. And then be prepared for the open house. Ask the seller if they need any help. Give them a list of things that they need to do. Make sure that it's 100% clean. The animals are gone. There's no smells. All the windows and shades are open. Make sure that the kitchen, even the inside of the stove, people forget to clean the inside of the stove. Make sure that the stove inside is clean. You'd be surprised at how picky people can get and how much they can criticize. And if they're too busy criticizing, they're not really looking at the potential the home has to offer. So always make sure that the house is clean, tidy, in its best shape ever. And then you broadcast the open house again on social media. You get the signs out. So I usually, since I'm doing the personal invitation to the sellers in the morning, an hour before the open house, I usually have to have the signs out even earlier than that. So I try to have as many signs as I can directing all traffic to my house. So that takes a little time. If you do have family members that you can use to help you, I usually have my kids helping me bring over all the signs out and stuff like that. So I just I don't even know how to say it. I can't say it. Strategically place them where people are going to see them from main roads and, you know, side roads, neighbors, whatever it is. Just make sure that they're all pointing towards your house. And then you have the open house. I have a bunch of things that I actually use and take care of. So I'll have the marketing pieces for the house. And I'll make sure that, you know, the flyers are good. I have the sellers approve them. Make sure that it shows all of their best qualities, all the best photos, all of the amenities that they have. And so that's part of it. And then you always have to have an agency disclosure notice appear somewhere in the vicinity of the open house, so you're in compliance. And if you're having somebody else do the open house for you, then you need this to explain that, you know, they're just a host only, the agent is not here, the agent that's in question does not represent the seller, just so everyone understands what's going on. And then if you are hosting the open house yourself, this is a disclosure as well, showcasing that you are indeed representing the seller, and everyone knows that in the office. You know, no one can confuse it for somebody else. just to stay in compliance. I also have, for the kids, you can't forget about the kids, I have real estate word search puzzles that I could, and I bring a couple of crayons and stuff like that I can just have the kids in one spot. It keeps them quiet, it keeps them entertained, and that way the homeowners, the buyer and seller can see them. And I also have the coloring book that I print out as well. And it has just a bunch of lion stuff, so they can take all this home. And it's branded to the agent. So the kids are taking these home. The parents are going to see these. They're going to remember your information, your stuff, and you're going to be like, oh yeah, that was the house that had all the extra stuff for my kids to keep them, you know, busy and quiet. And I also have my display open house search. So I offer the book as well. If not, I usually have one book at the open house with me just on display. And I also have a box of for my kids. I didn't bring it today, but it's a moving box that you can color on the outside, and it's branded to me as well. So the kids see that. They want to be involved. They want to be, you know, the more included you can get their kids, the more invested the parents become. And I always say that's how I respect people, is if you acknowledge my kids and take care of my kids first, I'm more inclined to give you more respect, more attention. You know, it's just, it's an easier way to me. You go through my kids. You take care of them, I'm going to be more receptive to you. And then I also have, so again, this is something that you showcase your talents to the neighbors and to buyers. So I have selling your home brochures that I also use. It just explains the process to the sellers as well, and the home buying process as well, so they can pick these up and go through the process and just, you know, take something. And I usually have snacks and cookies and stuff like that they can go through and, you know, have the kids coloring while they eat their cookies and stuff like that. So it's something that I feel, if you're gonna waste your, well, you're not wasting your time, but if you're going to put in all this extra effort into getting a home prepared to be on social media, on, you know, get your name out there, get the listing out there, you want to make sure that you're not wasting your time on something that you know is not going to do anything for you. Open houses are, it's a lot of time, a big chunk of your weekend. Instead of spending it with your family, you're spending it at home. You want to make sure that it's going to be worthwhile and have people coming in and seeing all the effort that you're doing, and potentially get new buyers, potentially get new sellers. And that's the main focus, is make sure you get sellers so you can continue to sell properties and, you know, get buyers. It's just a lot of work that goes into open houses. You don't just show up at the house and with just a MLS listing sheets and that's it. Like, you want to make sure that everyone knows you care about what you're doing, you like your job, you want to showcase this house in the best light that you can, and, you know, move forward going that way. So Stacy also, you know, explains that some people just, sometimes you just have to say no to open house. It's not great. You just move along and keep going, explain the process, that it's not going to benefit the seller or the agent, and just move along and explain it to them as well. There's plenty of articles like that. And sometimes you always get pushback, so it depends on the client. You always got to make sure that the client at least understands. And if they don't, then, you know, you could always send the open house to a newer agent that would like to do an open house just for the experience. And also, that's a great opportunity to showcase to the new agent how it should be done. You know, so they can, it's your listing, it's your name on the home. You want to make sure that that agent as well is doing what you would do on your own listing as well. So don't just give it to anybody, make sure that they know the process as well. Yeah, so seller prep, invitations, social media marketing, pre-open house report. I usually text them in the middle of the open house, say, hey, you know, we've gotten 10 people so far, it's a great open house. Or I say, we've only gotten one person, we might need a conversation after this. And kind of just prepare them about it, you know. Like, I'm not really happy with what's going on right now. I've been here for an hour and still nothing's happening. So it's always a way to kind of showcase them that you're just not making things up. It's the market that, you know, sets the price, not you. And then you go through the process, make sure that they're clean. I've had an agent, a seller that actually wanted to stay at the home for the open house. And I had to convince him that they're going to know you're the seller. And it's going to be very awkward for someone to try to come in and speak their mind about a home that you're trying to sell if the seller's there. It's just not good. It creates an awkwardness. You're just kind of standing there being weird, and sometimes they'll start talking and start telling things about the house that they shouldn't be telling them, and I'm like, you don't want to tell the buyer too much information about yourself, or that you're rushing, or you know what I mean? It's just, you don't want them there. It's a liability to your business. And you just don't want it to be awkward for the potential buyers as well. And they can tell. It's a weird tension, like, oh, he's... And then if you're trying to open the cabinets and stuff, you're like, well, why are they doing that? Well, that's what they're doing. They're checking out the house. So you have to always make sure, do not go. You can't stay. Sellers cannot stay. And the animals as well, they can't stay. But again, invitations, make sure you get it out there as far in advance as you can. That way people can't say, oh, it's last minute. I know people do, they post their open house on a Wednesday and then, you know, do their work for the weekend. But it's just not out there long enough for you to do all the prep work and all of the information that you would normally do. So I would always say, just post it on a Monday and create a countdown towards Saturday and Sunday, whatever day it is. And that gives you enough time to talk to the neighbors and invite them as well. Facebook marketing, with LAER, you automatically, and LAER and Boston Logic, you get a 5-day marketing on Facebook, paid advertisement, and that's automatically done for you. So it's being automatically paid for and marketed through Facebook and Instagram. So that's on the LAER profile page, and that gets out to thousands of people. So and you get all the leads from that as well. So that is another gateway that you can show the seller all of the work that you're doing for them. Say, listen, we're already marketing your property for the first 5 days, and these are all the people that are interested. They've clicked on the link. They wanted to see more photos. They wanted more information about it. We can't wait for the open house. So if that doesn't happen, another way to readjust the price as well. And paid ads do get a little funky if you want to do them on your own, but there's another class for that as well that goes through the marketing prepaid ads. And then you can share with all of your materials with the sellers as well. Everything that you're showcasing, they'll approve it. And then, like I said, I get my kids to help me with the signs here. Get as many people on board from the family. Get them all over the place. And then if you do get to the house, because this has happened to me, I've gone to the house early and they forgot about an entire room. Or it smelled a little funny because, you know, there was the cat litter in the room. You know, like there's little things that they are so accustomed to, they're so used to, that they don't even realize it's there when you first walk in, that I'll make sure that I do something about it quickly. You know, put a candle on, spray a little spray, do something that will eliminate the problem. I actually had somebody that their master bedroom's bed was not made. Like, they ran out of the house and forgot to do their master bed. So I sat there and I did their bed. Like, just the extra things that you've got to do to make sure that it's not a waste of time. Go ahead.
So the other instruction I give to the seller is to make sure that they're out of the house at least a half an hour early. And the way because some of them will wait until like 2 minutes before 12. And I try to say to them, I want to get there early just so if anybody shows up early that I'm on the premises, and you've got to be gone. So.
Yeah.
And the other thing is to ask them if they would leave all the lights on and the drapes pulled open.
So I usually do all the lights, all the shades open, as much light as they can. Sometimes they have like a dark curtains to cut the light. Just open it up. I'm a very light person, so if I go into a dark room, I get depressed. So I'm like, open everything up, you know, show as much light as they can. So, and then if they have a lot of like personal knickknacks, this is a big thing with open houses. There's going to be a lot of people coming in and out. I always make sure that they hide their valuables or take it with them. any medication, you know, just hide things that you don't want people to be touching or looking at. They're coming into your home. You got to remind them of that it's kind of an invasive thing, but you're trying to sell your home. You need to make sure that the things you don't want touched are in a place where they cannot be touched, because they're just, you know, people are curious. They want to know what's going on. They're going to open things, and you don't want them to see something that you don't want them to touch. So it's always a great thing to make sure that you always to let them know. And if, I usually have an iPad with Open Home Pro where they can sign in as soon as they walk in. I've never really gotten pushback on signing in because most people want to use the iPad. They just like to play with it. So I'm like, you know, just, you know, somebody sign in, and they usually do. And I also have a written, printed one. So if they're not tech savvy, they're afraid to use the iPad, they still have somewhere to use. And I usually, you know, I fill out the first couple slots. So, because sometimes if you don't, they either skip a slot, they won't put their number, or they won't put their email. So I usually fill out the first few, and then they'll copy whatever the other person did. Because for some reason, if someone says no, then they'll all say no. They'll all say no, and I'm like, no, I need all the information.
But you're setting the standard for how they'll fill it out.
Yeah, so I usually fill out the name, email, phone number. Do you have an agent? And then I also have another thing. If they're pre-approved, I have a little check, yes or no. So I usually fill out the first couple, and then pretend like people were here before you. And then they'll follow suit, and they'll fill out the whole sign-in sheet. But yeah, I usually say, hi, my name is Keisha Quiles from Realty Partners. Thank you for stopping by my open house today. Are you visiting many, or did you just happen to drive by in this one and stop in? If they have kids, I usually say hi to the kids first. You know, they're usually in before the parents. So I'm like, hi, what's your name? Blah, blah, blah. And then I'll give them, you know, the coloring book or the crossword puzzle and some crayons. They're usually like, yes, you know, go sit down. I have a little designated area where they can sit down and color. And then that's, you know, their parents are at little ease because, you know, I've spoken to their kids and stuff like that. So, handout checklist, make sure you have everything. List reports, I think you guys have already spoken about this with our mortgage lenders. They have list reports that explain the schools and the districts and where the ratings are and stuff like that. I also have that at the property. You could also have the mortgage breakdown as well, depending on which brokerage the lender you use. You can also have that there as well. People like to know what would the mortgage be on the house as a price and current rates and stuff like that. So it just makes you, the more prepared you are, the better you look. More information for them. And again, always acknowledge the kids. You know, coloring books, say hi to them first. They're usually running in before the parents. And they're usually choosing their rooms as well. So if there aren't a lot of people in the building, in the house with you, you can sometimes give them a tour, and the kids would be, you know, choosing their home, and I'm like, oh, really? And I'll have a conversation with the kid. What color would you pick your room to be? And just more rapport, and more likely for them to like you and the parents to like you, and, you know, potential buyer. Pets, of course, have treats there for them. A lot of people love their animals just like their little kids, so might as well treat them the same. And some people do hide the listing sheets. I personally don't. I have everything on its display. I also have, when I go through listings, I know I got it from Ann Silverman, that she does the tent cards of what's in each room and stuff like that. So say I have a laundry and washer and dryer that are staying, I'll put that in the kitchen, or stainless steel appliances, I'll put it in a different room. So that way it just reminds them what's going on in the house. And then a sign-in sheet, you know, you could have the sign-in sheet say whatever you want it to say, as much information as you want. But I find that the more questions you ask, the less likely they'll answer. So I keep it simple. Just, you know, the basics: name, phone number, email. Are you pre-approved, or do you have an agent? And that's usually how much time they want to spend on it. The more involved you get, I mean, it takes them away from it. They don't want to fill it out. You can do an open house survey. Sometimes they just don't do it. This is great for a broker open house where you can have other agents come in and check it out and give you their opinion, especially on price issues. So this is another way that you can say, listen, we did the open house. I know it's overpriced. I'm telling you it's overpriced, but I want to do a broker open house to get a bunch of professionals come in and give us their opinion as well, so that way you feel more comfortable. And always make it about them. You feel more comfortable in making a price adjustment. So that way they feel like you're not pressuring them, but at the same time you're getting your point across. And then food and cookies. Who doesn't like that? My daughter will be your best friend if you have food and cookies, I swear. She will go to you no matter what. I shouldn't be saying this on camera, but she will be your best friend if you have food, okay? That's just how she is. And I think that's it. I mean, if there's any agents buyers that have questions, of course, you ask them if you have time. If there's not a lot of agents there, you can always have answer any questions about them. How long have they been house hunting? When do they need to move? You know, just the basic things you would normally ask a buyer. But make it in a conversational way. You know, don't just integrate that. You know, it's just something easy. Just have a conversation. And then safety. So I personally fell because I was trying to rush into a room. So I would probably redo that again and go slower and look for lights. And I was rushing, so it was my fault. But I literally did not see where I was going. So I always be safe and sound, and don't do what I did and fall down a flight of stairs.
Is the proof?
Yeah, proof over there. So always make sure that I did an open house a while back where I was in a weird area. I wasn't familiar with the area. I was just doing it for an agent. They were away on vacation, and I didn't feel comfortable because I was on a dead-end street. Nobody was there, just me and the house was just a creepy old house. So I'm like, okay, so there's people coming in and out, and I'm like, all right. And then all of a sudden there was nobody in the house except for this one random guy. So I'm like, oh God. So I'm like, all right, he seems a little weird. He's hanging out way too long. And I'm like, he's not really talking to me. So I'm like, what is he doing? And you always get that sense, like something's up with this guy. So I just, call somebody, like, just stay on the phone with me until this guy leaves. Just be safe, it's just, there's a lot of weirdos out there, and you just got to be careful with what you do. So always the way you feel, and, don't go into basements, especially if they're dark and no way out, and attic, stuff like that. So just be safe. There's a bunch of apps, pepper spray you can do. Just always have them go in first. Always stay behind them, and check in with people. I usually say if I don't come back, I'm somewhere in that vicinity in that open house. Yeah, social media. I usually do a live video on Facebook and Snapchat at the house of the open house and show the commotion of the people that are there. That way people are like, oh, a lot of people are showing up. Another thing you could show the sellers, show you that you're doing your job, show you that you know what you're doing your job, and just share it to the world. You got to be very public when you're selling. And then the follow-up. If you do get their address, I would, if you invited all the neighbors, send them all a thank you note. Thank you for whatever coming in for the open house. If you have any questions, I also, for the sellers, particularly the neighbors, I usually say, thank you for coming to the open house. If you want a free CMA, please let me know. But here is a current market snapshot of your neighborhood. And they love that. So, and then I also say, if you want to be part of my monthly closed letter, marketing data letter, I usually set them up on MLS, or I send them a manual email with all of the recently closed listings for the month. Okay. And, it's just something else to keep in contact. Another way to get their email, their phone number, and just makes you look like the professional in the neighborhood. And then you add them to your database. Open Home Pro automatically sends them a email thanking them for coming if they sign in through the open house thing. But if they signed in on the paper sign-in sheet, then you send it automatically yourself. You send them a thank you. I have BombBomb, so I send them a quick video and a couple links to the house. So if I have a LAER 3D or the virtual tour, I send it to them as well. Did you want to say?
Yeah, back to Open House Pro. Beyond them following up with the clients, which is great, Monday morning it also sends you a summary of all your people, so you know what you're starting with. And the one thing about Open House Pro is you're more apt to get, for instance, their email properly spelled because they've filled it out on the computer.
Yes. And sometimes you just can't read their writing. Yeah. So, yeah, definitely send them the information and, you know, say thank you for coming. And then recap, you know, you're not there to sell the house. You're there for an audition and talent show. You're trying to get more listings from the neighbors. If you did it right, the neighbors are always going to be nosy. They want to know what's happening in their neighborhood. They want to know what's going on, what that house is compared to their house, what the value is, any updates that they're doing. You know, they're very nosy. So if you give them permission to be nosy and to come to the open house prior to the open house, it gives them that freedom to be like, oh, I always wanted to come see this house, if they haven't, and, you know, have that freedom, and, you know, you look like the professional as well, giving them that access. Be ready with the kids, acknowledge, greet people, be fun. I always say doing open houses with another person is a lot easier and less boring if no one's coming in, but it's just a lot of work, and sometimes you just get bombarded with guests that you just can't keep up with everybody. So it's always good to be with somebody else.
The end interview.
Oh, the exit interview.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Have somebody else outside say, how did it go? What did you like the most? Do you think you would be interested in buying this house? Do you know somebody else that's looking? Ways.
Or if you're not interested in this house, where you're just looking in this town or other towns, try to get some of their information so you can follow up with them.
Sometimes they'll tell you and say, you know, I was just looking, but I'm not really looking in this area. It was just because I was out and I saw the sign. You know, and then they're like, oh, really? What town are you looking in then? You know, and then that's another way to get their email. Say, well, do you mind if I send you stuff in that town? There's so many different ways to word things that make people feel comfortable, that they'll give you exactly what you're asking for. But final thoughts, strategics. It's a matter of being different and exactly what you want to share with everybody. You know, the book that you can read, and then you crush the open house, and that's about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.